Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Vector Constantine 1-8X24. This is, of course, a 1-8 LPVO. And on their 1-10 Constantine, which is a very similar optic with a much different reticle system that we'll get into now. Now, as to not bury the lead, this optic did die during the double drop test. However, both of the other optics that I've tested from Vector didn't die during there, so this could be a one-off, but again, you should know that this optic did fail the double drop test. Now, getting into specifics on the optic itself, this is about 17.6 ounces, about 10.5 inches long, 30mm main tube, 24mm objective lens, of course, with 1:8 magnification. Now, at 1x, you are sitting at a field of view of a massive 125 feet. Again, that field of view at 1x is very good. Near top tier, there's only a few LPVOs on the market that will have a similar or higher level of, or higher field of view at 1x. Now, that being said, the 1x performance of the optic, which is probably the most important, is not quite perfect. It's not going to be the flattest 1x image out there. It does have a fairly noticeable fisheye effect. Not terrible, but again, it's just not quite the perfect flat 1x that you can get from some other nicer, more expensive LPVOs. Now, fortunately, the reticle system that they have in here works very well, both at 1x and 8x, which we will again talk about in just a minute. Getting into the usability of the optic with the eye box and eye relief. Fortunately, the eye relief is very good, especially at 1x. You have a very forgiving, anywhere from like about 2 inches all the way out to about 5 or 6 inches. You have a very good sight picture, and the eye box, which is of course your left, right, up, and down, is also fairly forgiving. Now, of course, when you have these magnifications ranges from 1-8, 1-10, they start to get a lot tighter as you work up that magnification range. So at 8x, not only is your eye relief tighter, and it's still fairly forgiving, but it's definitely tighter, but your eye box becomes very tight, and you have like maybe less than 1/4 inch up, down, left, or right, where you can move your head and still get a decent sight picture. Now, that being said, the 1x performance, again, the field of view is excellent. The eye relief, eye box, very forgiving. It was very easy to use. So when I was transitioning from targets, using it around cover, using it on the ground, bending around stuff, that sort of thing, it's a very easy optic to use, especially again at 1x. Now, the Constantine line of optics from Vector is kind of their lower tier of optics. It's not quite their Continental line. The Continental line has German shot glass, and we actually have one of their German optics behind me up there to review later on. But the Constantine line is going to be much more comparable with basically every other LPVO, underneath $500 on the market. It's going to be manufactured in China with Chinese glass. The glass quality itself is fine. It's bright enough. The light transmission is decent. The level of detail you'll get is good. Again, there is a little bit of warping on 1x, like a little bit of a fisheye effect, and that's how you get that very good field of view. But the trade-off there is it is a little bit fisheye at 1x. Not as bad as some other optics, but still noticeable. Now, being that this is not their higher-end series of scopes, it is a very simple feature set. So, for instance, your magnification ring is nicely knurled, but there is no sort of throw lever for quick throws from 1-8. You have very simple capped turrets that are in 1/10 mil, because we do have a mil grid reticle. The turrets themselves are just fine. The clicks are very tactile, they're very clicky, and they're in a much more set and forget style. You're not really going to be dialing with this optic, especially again with that mil grid reticle. Now, we do also have illumination from 0 to 11, and on a full fresh battery, it is daylight visible, not really what I would consider to be daylight bright, but it is definitely usable. So if you like that sort of thing and you like to have it on, again, at 11, it is definitely usable during the day, though it's not going to show up quite like a red dot like you're going to get on like the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2. Now, externally, there's not much more going on. It is a very simply designed LPVO. Now, the nice thing about it is it is very lightweight, coming in at under 18 ounces for a 1-8x LPVO with a very good field of view throughout the entire magnification range. So even when you're cranked up to 4-8x, you still see quite a bit through the optic, again, because you do have that very good field of view. Now, one of the most important things we need to talk about on the optic with its 1-8 magnification range is going to be the reticle. Now, starting out in the center of the reticle, we have a very precise, I believe it's about a 1/2 mil dot, which is going to be more than precise enough for all of your quick shooting in between, say, 50 and 200 yards. When I was using this optic on a couple different rifles, this is a CAC 13.9. I've also used it on one of my Mark IIIs, as well as a 16-inch upper as well. I always have the optic zeroed at 50, so it's sort of a 50-200 zero, and then I would use the mill grid for all of my longer range shots. So again, in the center, we have a fairly precise dot. On the outside of that, we have a 2/3 horseshoe, if you will, for fast acquisition up close. And again, it did work very well up close, transitioning to targets. Picking up the reticle was very fast. It should also be noted that only the dot and the outer horseshoe illuminate. The rest of the mill grid does not. So if you're looking to use this in dusk or low light situations at extended distances, again, that reticle is really not going to help you out in terms of its illumination. Now, getting into the mill grid itself, starting off with the 2 mil holds, we have a 1 mil drop and a 1/2 mil increment on the windage. So meaning that you have 1 mil all the way down to 10 mils, and then 1/2 mils all the way out for your windage. Now, windage, especially with 5.56, is almost more important than drop. And this mill grid is more precise than a lot of other LPVOs or even mid-power variable optics that are using like just a standard 1x1 mill grid. Having that extra level of precision in your wind holds, for me, is very helpful. So while it was on the 14.5 Mark III, I took it out to 500 yards just using some pretty basic ball ammunition. And with that, having the extra wind holds in your mill grid was very helpful for having a definite finite point of aim that you can use to reference rather than trying to bracket a smaller target in between a couple mil dots. Again, having that extra level of precision, especially in your wind holds, is very important. So as far as the reticle goes, while there really aren't any sort of special auto ranging features that you're going to find in like an ACSS reticle, overall, a mill grid reticle is very usable. It's very translatory to different barrel lengths, different calibers, or what have you. So if you are comfortable working within a mill grid, this reticle doesn't. And that was one of the reasons why I was interested in trying out this optic, because there really aren't a lot of optics in this price range or magnification range that have a true mill grid reticle, especially a mill grid with this level of precision. So overall, the reticle is very usable up close with that horseshoe and center dot design. That is something that I am personally a big fan of. I find it to be a good balance of being fast up close while also giving you a good level of precision. And then with that mill grid, taking it out to extended distances, 500, 600, 700 yards with 8x magnification is going to be no issue. Combine that with a very wide field of view, meaning that you see a lot more, especially at those extended or higher magnification levels, combined with the fact that it's fairly inexpensive, around $399 or so, and the fact that it's under 18 ounces, meaning it's a very lightweight package that unfortunately died during the drop test. Now, to get into the mount real fast, this is actually a worn super high 193 mount. This is an excellent mount that I've been using for like years now at this point, and I still owe them a video on their mounts because they sent me a couple out that I've been using, but I haven't talked about them yet. But the mount is a very high quality mount, 193 mount. I had the cross bolts torqued to 65 inch-pounds and the rings to 25 inch-pounds, I believe, which is following manufacturer recommended specs on that. And during the first shoulder height drop test, I was doing a tiered drop test. So the first drop was going to be on dirt and rocks, and then the second drop would be onto an AR500 steel plate, which is basically like a pass or fail test at that point. And during the first drop test, the point of impact shifted off paper up and to the right about 2 feet at 50 yards, meaning that the optic, if it experiences any sort of sharp impact, its ability to retain zero, again, this is a very high quality mount, its ability to retain zero is somewhat in question. Now, this is the third vector optic that I have tested. Both of the other optics that I've tested, the Continental 1-6 and the Vector Constantine 1-8 or 1-10 that I've tested previously, both of those optics passed a double drop test with flying colors, basically no shift in zero, or I believe one of them had like less than an MOA shift in zero after a double drop test, whereas this optic did fail. This could be a one-off thing. I have had other optics fail in the first test, and then I get another one out and I have to retest it. Kind of like with the Primary Arms optics. Primary Arms did send me out another 3X prism to test to replace the one that I broke, so I will at some point be doing a redux on that one. But after that initial drop, I actually went ahead and re-zeroed the unit and did another drop test, this time onto the steel AR500 steel target, and it actually crushed the top turret into the body of the optic. So this optic is no longer usable at this point. It has no ability to be re-zeroed because the top turret is completely destroyed. So this optic did die during the drop test. However, before it died, it was, again, it's a very lightweight package, a very good field of view. I really like the reticle system in it. Other than that, it's kind of a basic Chinese optic. The glass is decent. You have decent eye box, decent eye relief. It's very usable. The fact that it failed a simple drop test that other optics have passed, and even other optics from the same manufacturer have passed, is a little bit disconcerting. So at the end of the day, if you put any weight on drop tests or durability testing, this is probably something that I would bypass. If you're not worried about something like that, then it still is a good option with a very good reticle and feature set, especially compared with its price and weight. But again, at the end of the day, that is going to be up for you guys to decide. Personally, there are so many good budget LPVO options that something like this is just going to slot in at or underneath some of those other options that are on the market, because again, there are so many good competitive options out there. But with all that out of the way, guys, let me know what you guys think of the Vector Constantine 1-8 or any other budget LPVOs that I should be testing out or comparing it against. I did actually just get in the Primary Arms, their new SLX 1-10 optic, which we will be testing out very shortly. But with all that out of the way, guys, thank you once again for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace off.